Hello and welcome to Unpreachy, a podcast from St. John Chrysostom Parish. Today, Father Ed Hallinan reflects on Luke chapter 14, verses 1 and 7 to 14, the Gospel reading for Sunday, August 31st, 2025.
Again, welcome everyone. I can remember when I was the pastor of St. Martin de Porres in North Philly. It either was the late 90s or it was the early 2000s. It was in the middle of the night I received a call. And when I answered the phone, it was a homicide detective from the Philadelphia Police. And he had formerly been at Our Lady of Mount Carmel. No, actually, I had formerly been at Our Lady of Mount Carmel in South Philly for 5 years, and I got to know him well. He knew I was the pastor of St. Martin de Porres. And so I get this call, and he said, "Father, I need for you to get up." He goes, "I need for you to get out of bed. I need you to put a light on and then come back to the phone." And he said, I really hate making this telephone call to you, but unfortunately, it's something that you're going to have to deal with. And he said, tonight, a few hours ago, a husband and a wife got into a fight. The wife, mother, left the house, went for a drive or whatever, and then she tried calling her house, and she was always getting a busy signal. And then she came home, and the door, there was a barricade behind the front door, and so some neighbors got a sledgehammer and took the door down, and she ran up to where her two kids were, second in grade and kindergarten, and they came to St. Martin de Porres School. And the father did the worst thing that you can imagine. I'm not saying it because I know there's a lot of little people here, but the worst that you could imagine is what he did. And so he said, everyone knows it's St. Martin de Porres School. So he goes, it's going to be over KYW News that they went to St. Martin de Porres School. You're going to have press surrounding your school, trying to get to the kids, trying to get to the parents, trying to get to you, to interview you. The wife went upstairs and saw he had an incision. She had thought he was deceased. And, when the police began to arrive at the house, she saw him being taken out, and he was like in a sitting up position with oxygen on, and he really did like a superficial wound. And he said it took about 4 or 5 cops to get her off of him when he was being taken out of the house into an ambulance. And so that day, I called at the time Monsignor Senior, who used to come here. He's now Bishop Senior. He was in charge of Catholic social services, and I'm calling him like 4 o'clock in the morning, asking him if he could flood my school with counselors. Counselors for the kids, counselors for the teacher. And I get him, and he's like, "Ed, I'm out of state at like a convention, and all the people that you need to talk to, they're all with me." And so we had a connection with Delaware County Intermediate Unit, and they used to send 2 people a couple days a week. We called them. They were absolutely wonderful. We will send as many people as possible. So the police officer said to me and sister, "I'm going to give you like a couple little guidelines. 1, tell the truth. 2, don't lie. 3, try not to give a lot of details. Don't lie, tell the truth, but try to hardly give details when you're talking to the kids. So the faculty came in. We had 2 of every grade. So we had a large faculty, and Sister and I, when we're preparing for them coming in, we got them together and said, you know what, when you're talking to the kids, tell them the truth, don't lie, but try not to give details. At this point, the teachers are sobbing. One of them raises her hand and says, I think I'm speaking on behalf of all the faculty here. We're in no position to talk to the kids, to tell them this. And so the principal looked at me and said, why don't you start in the 8th grade? I'll start pre-K3 and we'll work our way down. When I got up to the 8th grade, I realized why the teachers couldn't do it. Because as I began to speak, I got a lump in my throat, and it hit me. That was why they couldn't do it. And I was suffering from what they were anticipating. A couple 8th graders raised their hands and said, when I was in the car this morning and my mom was dropping me off, the news was on and the news said A, B, C about this. Is that true? He was asking pointed questions. So I told them that it was, true. Why did he do that, to his kids? And so it took us like about 3 hours in these classrooms trying to explain to the kids what had happened. One of the things that happened to our school community when that took place is a horrific cloud came over us. It came over the kids. It came over the faculty. It came over the families. It came over the principal and I. And it was a heaviness and a cloud that you couldn't push it away. It's very much unexplainable. Like, you really can't articulate what it was. And, we sometimes experience the death of a loved one, and it's traumatic, but we might be able to say, well, he or she lived a good life, or he or she was really ill, so we're glad God took them. We weren't able to say any of those things. The reason, I think you probably put 2 and 2 together, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because of what took place in Annunciation Church this past week, when those innocent school kids were attending the opening of the year Mass, and that sad soul began firing shots into the school. And one of the things that makes my blood boil, is when people degrade prayer at a time like that. Enough prayer. We need action. I agree 110%. We need action. We need people to speak up. We need politicians to get busy. I believe in all of that. But you know what? There's a cloud and a heaviness that those poor folks are dealing with, and no action and no politician is going to be able to lessen that cloud. And the only thing that we can do is pray. And so I'm asking all of us today, the reason you come here every Sunday, and you people are so faithful You people are so generous. You people, I brag about my community to other priests all the time. You come here to pray. You come here to pray for yourselves, to pray for your kids, to pray for our country. You come here to pray. You believe in the power of prayer. And we see what happens in the absence of prayer. Like, hopefully prayer makes us care about the dignity of the human person. Hopefully prayer instills us to care for other people. And so prayer is of the essence when something like this happens, along with action, along with politicians getting involved. Prayer is what changes our hearts and our minds. The principal and I, Sister St. Joseph, about 6 weeks after it happened, she said, do you have time for a cup of coffee? And we met, and she goes, how's your head? I says, it's as heavy as when I was talking to that cop on the phone in the middle of the night. I can't get rid of this heaviness. And she said, I'm going through the same thing. And she said, I think the faculty are going through the same thing. We're just going through the motions. So my message to you wonderful people today is in Annunciation Church, they're having Mass today. Think about that. They're having Mass today. Typically, you would go to church after something horrific like that would take place. What took place that was horrific, it was in the place that you go to pray about something like that. These fellow Christians, these fellow human beings, I'm not into this because it was a Catholic place. I'm into this because it was human life. And some of those kids probably weren't Catholic to go to that school like our own school here. We need them to know people on the East Coast, hundreds of miles away, are thinking of them, are praying for them, trying to discuss it with their kids to explain what happened. We need to pray. Don't listen to those voices that say, I heard enough about prayer. Boy, we see what happens in the absence of prayer. And you know what? Part of our faith as Catholics, we have to pray for the poor soul that did this. Like, we need to pray for him. His mom and dad, I believe they're not together, but he obviously wasn't a well person. And so if you want to take action, one of the things I know as your pastor, people will come in and say, Father, I'm trying to get my kid mental health, or I'm trying to get myself some mental health, and I can't find it. It's like not there. Yeah, if you want to take action, like do that. But church, we're people of prayer. They're counting on us to help move that cloud of sadness. They're counting on us. So church, I beg you today, hug your kids when you get home and assure them you're doing everything to keep them safe. But also pray for those folks out there. We don't have the words to say something to them, but we have the words of prayer and faith and healing. We have those words. Let's all do that for them. It's the least that we can do. God bless you.
Unpreachy is a production of St. John Chrysostom Parish in Wallingford, Pennsylvania. Visit us at sjcparish.org. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. This podcast was produced by Brendan Lorden with music by Skytoes on Upbeat. Thanks for listening. Be well.